So this show is on until Sunday. So it's up in Katona at the Katona Museum, and I went to see it. It's a really wonderful show by a really world-class illustrator. He Well, the first thing that I want to say is look at him and look at the lion. And if you notice, it's a self-portrait. He used himself as the model for this one. He was a charming and generous, creative dynamo. The guy basically illustrated well over 100 books in his 60-year career. He was a storyteller, who was very socially conscious in what he chose to do as a mature illustrator. Let's see. I'll do a little bit of history. Let's see. His books included, of course, they're picture books for children, but also he also did nonfiction titles and novels. His works really addressed a lot of different themes, and we'll go into some of that later on. Usually done in watercolor, though he did use mixed media and a lot of different approaches. So he really received so much acclaim in his lifetime. Died in 2021 of non-COVID ailment. I'm not exactly sure what he died of, but he just left us, at 81. And let's see, he grew up in Philadelphia. From how he describes it, it was a small street that had a large group of people that had migrated north from the south. So there was a lot of Southern culture that was in that Philadelphia block that he grew up on. He was the middle child of 5 siblings, and struggled in school because he was dyslexic, and they knew nothing about what dyslexia was about in the 40s and 50s. But he from his childhood on, he really showed a great ability to draw. He actually, in his teens, was working at a newsstand and drew people as they, as he was hanging around waiting for people and all that. So he'd draw people as they passed by on the newsstand. And a local cartoonist saw what he was doing and invited him up to his studio. And this was actually, he was young, in his like early teens, and that was the first time that he got the idea that he could use what he had as a skill of drawing to make money. So he struggled with school, but really had this ability. Wanted to apply for art school, and the counselors and the teachers that were supposed to submit an application didn't do that for him. So he went out of his way. He showed the tenacity to get out there and go to the school, pick up the application, and actually was accepted for a full ride at what is now Philadelphia University of Art. It was the Philadelphia Museum Art School at the time, and he and a friend of his both applied, and he got a full ride. He got a scholarship. So he had already met his future wife in high school, and so he did a few years at Philadelphia Museum, but married his wife Gloria in the early 1960s. I'm not sure if it was 1960. I'm a little mushy about the date on that, but decided to leave college and go out to. He got a job at a design studio in Boston, and they started their family. So, all right, we're going to move on to one of his really wonderful story books. This is The Lion and the Mouse. It's from an Aesop's fables. He loved Aesop's fables. Did several of them. I think, let me see, I've got some notes here. He did The Tortoise and the Hare, The Grasshopper and the Ants. He did a bunch of Aesop's fables because he loved animals. One of the things that happened when he was growing up in Philadelphia is his grandparents had a farm out in the country, and during the summers he would go out and work on the farm. So it was one of those things where he would see the animals, he would be exposed to country life, and that really affected him. So he really loved to work from animals, and he would go back to that repeatedly. 100 books he illustrated. This guy is like amazing. So this, you can see the story evolve. Basically the lion gets trapped in this trap, and the mouse chews through the thing and releases the lion, and there we go. This was one of, he won 5 Caldecott Awards. If you know anything about children's books, the Caldecott Award is like winning an Oscar. Okay, the guy got a Grammy. He also won 5 Coretta Scott King Awards for throughout his career. And actually, if I started to try and go into how many awards and honorary degrees that he received, I take up the whole hour with that. So we're not doing that. But suffice it to say, basically 5 Caldecotts is quite remarkable. And they're wonderful illustrations. I mean, just the kind of expression that he gets in these animals and the interactions are very well. You'll see more of these as we go along. Okay, the first book that he did was The First Adventures of Spider and Further Adventures of Spider. This is West African tales. So he was really delving into the Black culture. It's something that this folklore aspect of his work was really shows up again and again. So Pinkney's themes: Aesop's fables, African folk tales, stories from the Bible, American and international folk tales, jazz and blues lyrics. So you're seeing God Bless the Child was one of his books. So it's from Billie Holiday. Um, Civil rights struggles, Black heritage, the Underground Railroad, and animals. Love those animals. So I'm a storyteller at heart. There is something special about knowing that your stories can alter the way people see the world and their place in it. Um, so, so in in the 60s, there weren't a lot of Black specific books for children. Um, Most of which you saw were fairy tales and books on uh, with with animals. Of course, there were animals back then, but he really focused in on Black culture in a way that has really changed children's books. And one of the things that I really wanted to talk a bit about is the expressions in the body language, the how the figures interact, and it's a very profound part of the plot is the really how he would create these compositions and the story within the story. Each person in here has a different element that they bring to the picture, and most of them are turned away. But you can spend some time looking at how those faces are, what's going on with the body, what's going on in the picture and in relationship to one another. One of the things I wanted to bring to light in all of this is how basically Jacob Lawrence in the Migration series was something that Pinkney acknowledged as having really affected him. So basically, from the Harlem Renaissance, um, this was something that he picked up on and really explored in his work. The business of the Great Migration, the series that Jacob Lawrence did, told this story of the Black movement from Southern rural life to the northern industrial cities. And really, Pinkney grew up in that atmosphere. He grew up in a place where basically a lot of the people that came to Philadelphia that lived on his block had come up from the South. So he could identify with this through the stories that he heard. And again, here we are, these two images from God Bless the Child, where basically this is the rural South, and then you see the image of coming to the big city. And his drawings, always these drawings. He's really incredible. I'm going to actually zoom in on some of this. Let's see if I can get this zoom up. I wanted to zoom in a little bit closer to these drawings, which are really incredible, and the expressions on the faces and what he was really he was a terrific draftsman, and he used these thumbnail sketches to work out his ideas. Let's see. Let's go over here to this one. Beautiful. He kind of dashed these things off. They're on legal pads. He didn't use fancy paper. This is just like kind of like, scrapping this thing out, and he would take these and develop them further into the watercolors that would become the real illustrations. But all the way through, really incredible detail, but also the expressiveness and the interaction between the figures and all of that. He really would work through these ideas this way. Not unlike somebody like Hopper, who did the same sort of thing, did a lot of thumbnail sketches to work out the compositional elements and the relationship between the figures. Okay, and this is John Henry. Again, another Caldecott Award-winning book. He worked with an author by the name of Julius Lester. Very important, the relationship between the author and the illustrator, and they, well, I'll talk more about that too. But you can see these, what he's up to, really incredible watercolor technique that he developed. And here is taking one of those thumbnails and working it up into a finished watercolor. If anybody has any questions along the way, just put it into the chat, and Joan will pick up on it and feed me the question if it directly relates. Otherwise, I'll answer any questions that come at the end. This is really the transformation, the transition from the thumbnail to the fully blown illustration. And again, the Uncle Remus stories, and these are the rough-in, sketches. Not the greatest illustrations of it that I could find. They're a little blurry, but you get the idea. And the expressions on the faces and all of that, they're really very interesting pieces. He loved the animals, and really he gave many of the animals human characteristics and human expressions, and the interaction between them is certainly different than a bear and a rabbit in the wild. So let me see. I'm gonna do the zoom again, because these are definitely worth taking a closer look at. So I'm gonna come in on this one. And remember, let's see, I just had up a thumbnail of this piece, the lion and the rabbit. Let me go back right there. So you see the rough thumbnail sketch there of that one, and here is the more fully rendered image. And I'm gonna go to the zoom in and go up here and take a closer look at this. Really funny. His sense of humor is like, really very playful, a lot of fun. The spectacles on the bear. He's really something. The texture on the wall, the wood and all of that, really beautifully done watercolors. Okay. And again, there's this social consciousness that he brings to it, And that comes straight out of the Harlem Renaissance again. Um, uh, the retelling of the childhood of Harriet Tubman. And again, you can see in this illustration his great feel for watercolor. You know, basically those the negative spaces. Let me do this. I'm gonna pull up the zoom again and zoom in on this. You can see between the pieces of grass, he paints around the grass rather than painting the grass. He uses broad areas out. He uses these broad areas against these concentrated areas of great detail in the figures. So it's very abstract. A lot of what's going on back there in that background, in that landscape, is very loose and simplified, big shapes, but our focus is on the interaction between these people in the foreground. Okay. And this one won one of the Coretta Scott King Awards. And these are more detailed and developed renderings. Let me again go in and zoom, because these are so beautiful that I want you to really be able to see some of what's going on here.
Larry, do you know which books these are from?
No, these were rough sketches. I think some of them are from the God Bless the Child series, but others I'm not sure about.
Did he use real models?
He did use real models for some of these. He also used photographs and things like that. He would actually at times use a photographer who used to do setups in his photography studio. So he would have specific things that he was going after. A lot of his work is very deeply researched. He would go, basically and learn what kind of chairs would be used in the South. What kind of you see a pie on the table. How would that look? What are the perforations like in the surface of the pie? What did the material of the dress look like? So he really did a lot of research into these things. Beautiful drawings. And he did a lot of these. I mean, that's one of the other things is the interaction, the development from the drawings. And, these are drawings and washes. So this is a stage in the development. Then he would take these and re-render them in watercolor and use them for the illustrations, or not. I mean, basically, one of the things that goes on is this is very collaborative work. He's collaborating with a writer, and he's collaborating with the editor of I think it was Hachette that he was working with a lot of the time. So the feedback, he would take the feedback. He would do these sketches, he would send them and talk about what he was up to and the direction he was going throughout the process of creating the illustrations. It's fascinating. Not a one-man trip. Okay, and then the social justice illustrations. There's a lot of these that he did, and like I said, 100 books. The Rosa Parks stories. I love this, the mirror of the upside down bus underneath her, and the reflection of the figures marching. And then, again, this is from um, a Martin Luther King book that he did, and I'm going to move on to that next anyway. But these are, again, these are really beautiful illustrations. I love the rain, the atmosphere that he creates with these pieces. Ah, A Place to Land. That was what it was. And he worked with Barry Wittenstein, who was the writer, and as I said, he worked with the editor also. So he would develop these pieces, and he would, send it to the writer, send it to the publisher, to the editor. These are a combination of watercolor and collage. You can see the collage in the, "We shall overcome" lyric in there. There's a dignity to these pieces that's just really comes across. And again, the research, the layers of characters that he put into these pieces. You see the collaged on paper, business, the business aspect of writing this speech, and trying to come up with that the right words to speak. The search for meaningful subject matter was something that really mattered to him a lot throughout. These illustrations are from 2019. And this is a view of a section of the exhibit that's up at Katona. Basically, he did a lot of pieces that were from music, and this was an all women band. The Sweethearts of Rhythm. Beautiful color too. Guy really knew his stuff. Okay. A sense of community has always been important to me, and I want that to be reflected in my art. When I speak of community, I'm not talking about the immediate world around me, but also legacy. I am always searching for projects that connect with my culture and the experience of being Black in America. And the other part, the other piece of the exhibit that's on up at Katona is a group of younger illustrators who were influenced or, you know, actually were helped by Pinkney to get, you know, their work out there. Okay, sense of community, celebrating Jerry Pinkney's legacy. And this is Ogmoro. I'm not sure how to say that name, actually. I won't even try, but the oldest student. Imagine learning to read at the age of 116. Discover the true story of Mary Walker, the nation's oldest student, who did just that. In this picture book from Caldecott award-winning illustrator and rising star author. So, and you can really see, you know, this kind of interaction, the passing down. Now, this piece looks to me like a lot of it was done with collage, you know, cut paper and painted, but cut paper. And this is Brian Pinkney, Jerry's son. And again, Papa Gonna Buy Me a Mockingbird. It's Hush Little Baby. His, you know, one of his books. And here is Jerry and Gloria. That's and Brian and Andrea. Andrea actually, when I went up this past weekend to the Katona Museum, there was a panel that was there, and she actually acted as the moderator of the panel. So there's a family legacy. Gloria also is an author, and they collaborated on a number of books together throughout the years. And Brian and Andrea, she is also a writer. So they have, he has a Jerry's granddaughter is also an illustrator, and I believe there's another family member who's an illustrator. So this is really a family legacy too.
Andrea is his daughter, Jerry Pinkney's daughter.
No, Brian is his daughter.
Brian is the son, and that's Andrea is the wife of
Yes,
Brian.
correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and this is another wonderful author, and one of her books is Bird. You know, basically the musical theme comes back. James Ransom. Actually, James Ransom did a book. Sonny Rollins plays the bridge with my friend Gary Golio, who is a children's author, and they worked together on that. So you can see the influence of Pinkney, the kind of interaction between the figures and all of that. And this is Jerry's granddaughter, who is also a children's book illustrator. I'm not sure, you know, I saw this, but I didn't look closely enough to tell what the technique was that was used for this particular piece. It may be computer generated. I'm not 100% certain. It's either that or it's cut paper. I can't tell in you know, on the screen, but it looks to me like it's cut paper because there's a certain kind of texture that's happening where the planes meet in the image. But if you get up to Katona during the next couple of days, if you're interested in doing that, the show is up until Sunday. And this one is a combination of watercolor and collage. And this one's a pastel. This is a fairly large scale piece. I remember seeing this up there, and this is fairly large. Okay, and this was one of Jerry's last books, The Little Mermaid.
You're all cleaned up.
Thank you. I have a program, so, but, oh,
Okay, so Tenacity and Resilience, the art of Jerry Pinkney, is on through Sunday, the 22nd. There are a number of YouTube interviews with Jerry Pinkney, which are really delightful. He was such a terrific human being, from what I could see in these talks. So it's definitely worth tuning into. So if you search Jerry Pinkney on YouTube, you'll find these. So that's going to be about a wrap for this one.
sounds good.
Yep.
Just so everyone knows, we did have Jerry Pinkney to the library many, many years ago, and I met him and his wife.
Yes, he
And it was
did.
a
He did
thrill.
an exhibit at the
Right.
Chappaqua Library.
I think
in
when
the-
Gary Golio was here.
It might have been in the 80s or the 90s.
Mhm,
I think it was in the 90s.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was very gracious man, very lovely people. Very,
Yes.
very nice. Okay.
So that's
well,
it.
Thank you all. Larry, if you would stay on,
Sure.
and I thank everyone for coming.